Okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Maggie with Whisked Away Cooking School. And today we had a request to do recipes with Zoodles. So we are doing 2 recipes with Zoodles. So you're gonna learn how to make zoodles out of zucchini. There's a couple different ways to do it. But the dishes are very different. We're doing zoodles with a Bolognese, so like a spaghetti and meat sauce. And then we're doing a zoodle bowl with a chimichurri sauce and shrimp. So 2 totally different kinds of proteins. But we are going to start with the zoodles with Bolognese. Just a couple of reminders. I love to go over tips and tricks, ask questions at any time. I can't hear you, but there's somebody monitoring the questions and they will speak out when there's a question. Also, 3 things to keep in mind when you're cooking. Mise en place. So if you've taken one of my classes before, you should know this phrase, and it loosely translates from French into things in their place. And what that means for you at home is when you are making a recipe, you want to make sure you have all of your ingredients. You want everything measured out and prepped first, and then you start the cooking process. Always clean as you go. It lifts a huge weight off of your shoulders at the end of the cooking process. And then I always have a trash bowl by my workstation. So we're going to start with the zoodles with the Bolognese sauce. Bolognese just means meat sauce. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mince our garlic cloves. So I've already minced a bunch ahead of time because it would get a little tiresome to watch me mince 6 garlic cloves. So I'm just going to do 1 for you just to remind you of how I do it. So I like to crush and mince. This is a really good head of garlic. I get so excited because sometimes you break into it and there's like 5 million tiny little garlic cloves, or you have sprouts growing out of them, but this is a really good one. Just gonna pat myself on the back for selecting a good one. So first we want to get into the garlic clove, and you're going to use the side of your knife and the heel of your hand with the blade facing away from you. It's going to be loud because this is a metal table. And all you're doing right now is you're just cracking the skin. We're not trying to crush it. Oh, there we go. We're not trying to crush it at this point. We are going to crush. We're going to crush and mince at the same time. So when you crush, you release all, I'm going to do it one more time. You release all the oil from the garlic. And when you're mincing, you're obviously cutting it up. This one's being difficult. I'll try. Oh, wait, hold on. There we go. I might have to use the tip of my knife to get under. It's like a thin skin. You can get already peeled garlic cloves if you want to. They just don't last as long in the refrigerator once they've been peeled. Okay, so cutting board towards the end of the counter, garlic clove towards the end of the cutting board. Notice I did not cut either end off of my garlic clove. So I'm going to have my knife blade side down. I'm going to flip it so that the blade is facing up. So you do not want to rest your hand on the blade. That's why I keep this little root end on my garlic clove. And my knuckles are all the way off the end of the counter and the cutting board. So what I'm doing is I'm planting the tip of my knife on my cutting board, and I'm coming straight down on that garlic clove as if I'm like shaving off the end of the garlic clove. And I'm using a lot of strength. I'm like white knuckling this. It's not a dainty little motion. So you're using a lot of muscle in this. So if you're using a fresh clove of garlic, this will be all you need to do. So as we come down with the back of the knife, we are crushing it, releasing the oil, and mincing it. So cutting it up, 2 birds with 1 stone. If you need to get through it more, you just scoot your garlic to the center of the cutting board and use a little semicircle cut and get through it. But again, if you're using fresh garlic, you shouldn't have to do this. You don't want to use that old garlic that's been sitting in your cabinet. Hopefully, don't ever store garlic in the refrigerator unless it's already peeled. Always a cool, dark place. But if it's soft, don't use it. And it's really hard to do this trick if you're using soft garlic that's aged a little bit. So as always, I'm going to get the garlic smell off my hands, and I'm just going to wash my hands with soap and water, and I'm going to leave the lather on my fingers while I rub my fingers against something stainless steel, and it'll totally neutralize the odor. So key is making sure you have the lather on your fingers. Sorry, I have my back to you. and then rub your fingers against something stainless steel. There's a stainless steel sink here, but at home I have like a little bar of stainless. It looks like a little one of those old pink erasers. It looks like that, and that's exactly what it's used for. Next, we have our onion. So I'm only doing half of this recipe, by the way, because I made the other half at home, and I'll combine them here. So we're going to get into our onion. This is a sweet onion. I love sweet onions. I mostly only use sweet onions, personal choice. You can use whatever you want. I will use red onions for color in like salads, or if I'm roasting vegetables, I'll use a red onion. But you want to know the anatomy of your onion. So you have your stem end and you have your root end. So you're going to cut your stem end off first, turn it over onto its flat side, and you're going to cut directly through the middle of the root end. This is when you want to peel it. It's easier to peel a half of an onion than it is a whole onion. I'm going to peel off this whole layer here because there's a little blemish in my onion. Okay, so if you're right-handed, root end is facing to your left. If you're left-handed, it's facing to your right. Cutting board towards the end of the counter, onion towards the end of the cutting board, root end facing to my left because I'm right-handed. Fingers on top of the onion, you're going to make a series of horizontal cuts going right up to, but not through that root end. The root is keeping the onion together while we're cutting it. I'm going to turn it a quarter of a turn so that the root end is facing away from me. And then I'm just going to use the tip of my knife to get right up to that root end. But again, I do not want to go through the root end because I don't want my onion to fall apart. Turn it back to its original position. And then you're just going to make a final series of vertical cuts. And there's your diced onion. If you've taken my class before, hopefully you've been working on your knife skills, and this is coming a little bit easier. Once you get it down, it just makes prep a whole lot easier. All right, we have a little bit of kosher salt and pepper. I always use kosher salt. Again, this is a personal choice. Kosher salt comes in flakes and not crystals, so it dissolves faster in your food, and you have less of a chance of over salting. You can use whatever salt you want. There's so many choices out there. So whatever you're most comfortable with is what you should be using. Okay, so then we have our San Marzano tomatoes. San Marzano tomatoes are a little bit more expensive, but they are totally worth it. If I mention where I get them, I don't get kickbacks from these places. I do a lot of grocery shopping, as you can imagine, so I know where the best price for things are. And the best price for San Marzano tomatoes right now are at Walmart. So I usually stock up when I go. So I just combined my garlic and my onion because I'm going to be putting those in at the same time. So this is what the San Marzano tomatoes look like that I get. There's a couple different brands. I don't know if you can see. It's Cento. Do not get San Marzano style. That's different. Those are different. They're not real San Marzano tomatoes. And then we have a little bit of water. I've already ground. I didn't grind it. I browned the ground beef. So I use, in this one, I think I use 93.7. So 7% fat, 93% lean. I really try not to do any lower in fat than that because you lose so much flavor. I mean, you could do 85-15 if you wanted to. That's a little bit more expensive. So I also try to stay within like a good price range for what I'm making. And then our zucchini. Okay, here comes the fun part. Here's your Zoodles. I'm going to move my cutting board out of the way really quickly because, so the Zoodle, the spiralizer is really what it's called. The one that I have is a huge one that attaches to my KitchenAid mixer. So all I do is attach it, do the same thing as this, but I just turn my mixer on and it does it for me. I don't have to crank it. It's like reminds me back in the day when I had to crank my windows down. So this suctions, you press this little lever. This is the OXO brand. You press this little lever down and it'll suction it onto your countertop. And this one has different blades that you can put in. This is a small spiralizer. So I'm just going to cut the ends. Actually, I'm going to cut the ends off the zucchini, and then I'm going to cut the zucchini in half. And then I just I should probably have a bowl under here. I didn't think about that. So usually the different attachments are different sizes of the Zoodles. Mine are a little bit thicker than the ones coming out of this. Come on, guys. Yeah, it's way easier to have the one coming off your KitchenAid. Oh, look, it's like pushing my bowl away. It's not even letting me gather it in there. Okay, so there's some Zoodles. I'll do the other half too. But you have different attachments that give you the different sizes. So you just kind of have to unwind this thing. And you can like, raw zucchini is actually pretty good. So you can snack on this little chunk once it comes out. And you just detach it from here. So you've got this little guy. We'll do the other one. Do it again. So you can see there's like this little round thing right here. So I'm trying to center that from back here. So the KitchenAid one that I have is really nice because I can do like sweet potatoes on there, like harder vegetables on here. On something like this, it would be a little bit more difficult to do because you'd have to press really hard. Plus, this is plastic. The one that I have is it's metal, so it's a little sturdier. I think there's also one that you can actually, it's handheld, and you can do that. But
we got one of those, one of the demos. I think it was you did. Yes, several is shopping on Amazon right now.
Oh,
so we have it. Somebody wants to get it.
Nice.
Like 12 different ways.
Perfect. All right, this is going to go down here. So we have our Zoodles. I'm just going to add them to the amount that I already did. So believe it or not, the amount in this bowl, including what I just did, is only 5 zucchini. I feel like that gets a lot. You can also buy Zoodles already done for you. So you can get them in the fresh produce section, usually where you find like the bagged carrots or like mushrooms, or you can get them in the freezer section. Because zucchini, it has such a high water content, I wouldn't recommend the frozen ones just because they'll be super liquidy. But it's an option. Okay, so we are going to make our Bolognese sauce. So the first thing we're going to do, pan hot, oil hot. Always when you saute, pan hot, oil hot. Then you add your ingredients, or really pan hot, fat hot, because we could be using any kind of fat. This is induction. It heats up even faster than gas. So we're not even, usually it's about 30 seconds. This is already hot enough. I mean, not even 5 seconds. Just enough oil to lightly coat the bottom of the pan. A saute is a small amount of fat over high heat, and it's a quick cooking process. Stick this over here. And we want our oil to heat up next. You don't want to throw whatever it is in there as soon as you add the oil. You want your fat to heat up before you add your ingredients. You'll know when it's ready to go when the oil thins out. And when you tilt it, it'll like shimmer or ripple down the pan. Because this is induction, if you lift it off, it'll start yelling at you. Okay, we're ready to go. So I want to hear that hiss when my ingredients go in the pan. I hear it. Success. So we're just going to saute this until you're going to start to smell it almost right away, but we want the onions to be nice and translucent, softened. Put this back. And you do want to be patient with this. It takes a couple of minutes for it to get there, but be patient. Then once we add the San Marzano tomatoes, they're like full tomatoes, but we're not going to chop them up yet. Sometimes sauces ask for you to like squeeze them in your hands before you add them to the sauce. We're gonna wait for them to cook down a little bit. And I use this chopster. This is for ground beef. So this is what I usually use to like break up my ground beef when I'm browning it. But it also works really well for the San Marzano tomatoes. So I like, if I buy a gadget, which I don't have a lot of gadgets, I like for it to have more than one use. We're gonna stir, stir, stir. We don't want the garlic to burn to the bottom of the pan. When garlic burns, there's no going back. It tastes super bitter. That's why some people like to add it in after the onions, so the risk of burning is not as high. But I took a risk today. It is starting to smell good. All right, so there's liquid in here, so it might spit at you when you add the tomatoes in. So I just like to add them as quickly as possible so it doesn't have the chance to spit at me. And then I'm going to stir it around, and we're going to let this simmer for about 20 minutes. So I actually brought my induction cooktop so that I can transfer this over there and we can actually let it simmer. A little plate. So I'm going to put, I did not bring a lid, so we'll just let it simmer without a lid. But at home, if you have a lid, you can let it simmer on low. With the lid on, take it off, and then we're gonna break up the tomatoes once it has simmered. So I'm gonna turn that on to medium low. And I have my ground beef up here, which I'm gonna add at the end. So after we've simmered it and broken up the San Marzano tomatoes, then we add the ground beef. You can add whatever ground meat you want. It does not have to be ground beef. And you can also do, I've done it before with the Italian chicken sausage from Trader Joe's. And that is also really good if you want to add just like a little Italian flair. So we're going to get back to that in a second. And we're going to move on to our other recipe, our second recipe with the chimichurri noodle shrimp bowls. So I have another piece of equipment under here. So I need my little mini food processor. This is what is this thing called? The Smart Stick. This is one of my favorites. It's like a little mini food processor, immersion blender, and whisk all in one. And I love this little tool. I use it all the time, especially if you don't have a huge, well, this wouldn't even work in a big food processor because there's too few ingredients in there. Okay. Yes. Yeah. A Smart Stick by Cuisinart. All right. Let's see. I don't think I need these anymore. All right, let me get the ingredients for our second recipe. A lot of fun ingredients here. What's that? Oh yeah, garlic and onion can really do wonders to the smell of a room. Okay. So I've got tomatoes, I've got mushrooms, I have fusilli pasta that's made with quinoa and brown rice. And I have parsley, parmesan, and I have shrimp. Lots of good things here. Okay. So the first, I'm gonna move this. The first thing we're gonna do is make the chimichurri. So as I'm talking about the ingredients, I'm just gonna put them right into this little mini food processor. So we have about 2 cups of flat leaf parsley. I never use curly parsley. I feel like the only place curly parsley belongs is on like a salad bar, like as a display. Flat leaf parsley has way more flavor. And if you've taken a class before, then you remember that you can chop the stem in with the leaves on parsley and cilantro. So you can just chop up off the top of the bunch what you think you're going to need. You don't have to pluck each little individual leaf. So I'm going to put that in first. So this is one of those things, since everything's going in together, I can just add it all into the bowl. I don't have to necessarily prep out everything into little individual sized bowls. We have our garlic, which I've minced that, and I just showed you how to do it. If you wanted a little shortcut, I hesitate giving you this shortcut, but I will. Since this is so many cloves of garlic, you could take the skin off of your garlic and just put it in the food processor without anything else and process. It'll chop it up for you. It won't be as even of a cut as if you did it yourself, but it's a little shortcut for you. Okay, so we'll add that in there. And then we have a little bit of red wine vinegar, about 2 tablespoons. Shake that around. Okay, you can eyeball 2 tablespoons. If you ever worked in a bar, you know what each pour means. What do I have next? Oregano. And then I'm going to do some red chili flakes. If you don't like spice, there's not very much in this with just half a teaspoon, but you could leave it out altogether, or you could add more. A little bit of salt, kosher salt. And I'm just going to do a little bit of black pepper. And then we're going to be using a half a cup of olive oil. I'm going to start with a little bit less than that, and we'll mix it up and see how it looks. But you do want it to be enough to coat all of your ingredients without kind of overcoating it. So I'll start with like half, and we'll see what that looks like. So we're going to blend it up. This thing is not quiet. Okay, so going to need more oil. That back on. You could also do this in a blender if you wanted to. I have like the little mini attachment onto my Vitamix that I use when I'm doing this. It'll blend it more, like it's almost will puree it. You won't have like the chunk of the parsley as much in there. So just really whatever you feel like using. If you didn't have a blender or a food processor, you would just chop the parsley up super fine and then just whisk everything together. So don't feel like you need all these tools in order to make this recipe. So I am going to taste this. Oh, here, do this spoon over here to see if it needs more salt. Yes, it does need more salt. I wore my salty t-shirt today. I have 2 salt t-shirts. Is that bad? All right, just a little bit more. And we're also, after we pull everything together, we will also season the whole dish. So I don't necessarily want to go overboard on this. Okay. That should be good. All right, so now I'm going to get this pan out. We're going to go over the other ingredients. We're going to have you can use whole grain spaghetti. They stopped making the brown rice quinoa spaghetti at Trader Joe's. I'm very sad about that. So we're using the fusilli instead. You don't have to add any pasta in if you don't want to, or you can add another whole grain. You could add farro in there. You could add quinoa if you want a little bit of carb in there. Brittany's going to talk some about the nutritional stuff too, so I won't go too far in that territory. And then our zucchini, which we have a lot of it. And then we have our more olive oil. That's just for sauteing. Our cherry tomatoes, I always use cherubs. I always have that huge thing from Costco in my refrigerator. They are always sweet. No matter what time of year it is, they're always sweet. Mushrooms. Let's talk a little bit about mushrooms. I've used mushrooms in here before. We're using baby bellas, which are also known as cremini mushrooms. They're already sliced. I get them already sliced at Trader Joe's. You can get them already sliced at the grocery store. There's also, you have access to so many more types of mushrooms than we used to. We used to just have access to like white button mushrooms. There's all different varieties of mushrooms now at the grocery store. So if you want to mix it up a little bit and even go beyond creminis, there's oyster mushrooms are readily available. Shiitake mushrooms are readily available. They all have different flavor profiles. And if you're not a mushroom person, leave them out. Add another vegetable. You could add peppers in here if you wanted to. You could add like grated carrots in here and saute those in here. So, or double up on the tomatoes. So don't feel like you're locked in to a mushroom. So if you get the mushrooms whole, don't ever wash them underwater. They're like little sponges. They will absorb all of that water that you put onto them, and then they will release them during the cooking process. You just dust them off with a dry cloth or a paper towel. They're grown in sterile soil now, so there's a little bit of dirt. It's okay. They used to be grown in manure, so that was where there was a problem. But we don't have to worry about. We haven't had to worry about that for a very long time. These ones, so with the creminis, it's okay if you have some of the gill still left in there. If I had a full portobello mushroom, I would probably remove the gills because they discolor everything else in your dish. It doesn't make a huge difference in taste, but it'll definitely discolor everything in there. The other thing with mushrooms is when you're sauteing, just like when they absorb all the water when you're washing them, they will absorb all the oil in your pan. Whatever liquid there is, it's gonna soak it all up when it's in your pan. So try to keep from the temptation of adding more liquid to your pan when you're cooking mushrooms, because just give them a minute and they will give back the liquid that they soaked up. So we have our shrimp. We're in Arizona, and unless you want to eat lake shrimp, you're not getting fresh shrimp here. So I buy frozen, and most of the times whatever you're buying in the grocery store has been frozen and it's just thawed out. So I buy, to make it easy, the peeled, deveined, detailed shrimp from Costco. You defrost it under cold running water. You don't defrost them in the refrigerator overnight. You'll end up with really, really gummy shrimp. So cold running water, and then obviously you are going to drain them. And then we have Parmesan cheese. Just a reminder, when a recipe calls for you to grate, shred, or crumble your cheese, you want to do it from scratch, because if you get it already done for you, it'll have additives in there that keep it from clumping, but it really just takes away from the flavor of the cheese and inhibits melting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to saute our tomatoes and our mushrooms. So pan hot first, and then we're going to add a little bit of oil. I'm going to check on my sauce back here. I'm going to turn it up. Okay. Turned it up a little bit. Wasn't simmering very well. Okay, so that's already hot. I'm going to add just enough oil to lightly coat the bottom of that pan. When you add, oh, you know what? I forgot to add the water to the sauce. I'm going to put that in there. That'll keep it from tasting like overly tomato-y. You can also add like half white wine and half water if you want to. That'll add some more flavor. Or you can do, if you're adding ground beef to it, you can do half beef broth, half water as well. Okay, so if you add too much fat to your pan, you venture into the pan fry territory, which is not what we're doing. Okay. All right, so that's hot. I'm gonna add my mushrooms first. then my tomatoes. These guys are gonna get greedy and they're gonna take up that oil. So we'll just spin these around. And we want those to cook down. So I have virtually no oil left in my pan because the mushrooms have gobbled it all up, but they're going to re-release. But this is the point at which people get very tempted to add either more oil or a little bit of water to the pan because they get scared that it's all gone. But I promise, if you're patient, it'll come back. All right, so after we do this, I'm actually going to add the shrimp to start that cooking a little bit. After the liquid starts coming back out of the mushrooms, I'm going to add the shrimp and then the noodles are the Zoodles and the chimichurri sauce. Once I add the Zoodles, I'm going to move to using tongs. It's going to make it a lot easier. And then we'll add Parmesan to the top, but I'm going to taste it before I add the Parmesan to the top. Stir that a little bit. You really want the mushrooms to be tender and cook down a little bit. And this does take a couple of minutes. So I'm going to check on my sauce again. All right, that's going pretty well. I'm going to stir it around. So I think we're actually at the point where we can break up our tomatoes in our Bolognese sauce and add the meat, and then I'll taste it for seasoning. So I'm just gonna turn this off real quick. So I'm just gonna take this little chopster. You can get this on Amazon. They've got a couple different versions of it. I'm also gonna stir this a little bit. I can start to see a little moisture coming back into that pan. So we're gonna chop this up. You just don't want any huge chunks in the sauce. Okay, pretty good. And then I'm gonna add the beef, which has been cooked all the way through. Gonna stir that in. And then because that was cold, I'm gonna put it back onto the heat. I'm gonna taste it first. I'll put it back onto the heat to heat the beef up a little bit. Salt. Stir it around. Stir these guys over here. I'm gonna go ahead and add my shrimp. I want to make sure I keep these spatulas separate. Now, shrimp is cooked when it is pink and not gray, and when it's shaped like a U. If the shrimp goes like head to tail, it's overcooked. So kind of hard to avoid sometimes. So if you have a couple that are like that, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, so we're just gonna stir this around a little bit. I want this to be cooked a little bit more before I add my Zoodles and my actual pasta. I just need to make sure that there's no gray left in there. But it is a pretty quick cooking process. You could use already cooked shrimp if you want to, and you would just add that in with your pasta and your zoodles all at the same time. You could actually also, I love roasted shrimp, so you can roast it ahead of time and then add it in kind of towards the end just to heat it up if it's cooled down at all. All right, so now, and you can kind of see if you can, yeah, you can see there's a little bit, there's liquid back in the pan. You're looking at color, firmness, and also they'll go from being like, well, you know, to firm and kind of in a U shape. Depends. Three to 5 minutes. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm gonna add this in. Now, the downside to like a grain, well, like a brown rice or whole wheat pasta is they like stick together more for some reason. And then I'm gonna add some zoodles in here. I need like kitchen scissors. So this, I go through phases of eating the same dish over and over again. Like I just make a huge batch of it. I'm just gonna use my hands. And I ate this for like a month every day. I love this dish. So I'm gonna try and stir it around, and then I'm going to add the sauce to this. But I want the zoodles and the other pasta to be heated up. Oh, I'm like, where is it? It's right here. Once they cook down a little bit, you can actually put this whole thing. If you heat up the pasta, you can dump it onto your uncooked zoodles. I just like mine to be warm. Yes. Yes, thank you. The pasta was cooked before I put it in there. So I'll give you a couple tips on cooking pasta. I mean, probably one of the easiest things that you can do. However, the first 30 seconds to a minute are the most important part of cooking pasta. First of all, you want to bring your water to a full boil, add water or add salt after the water has come to a boil. Don't do it before, especially if you have stainless pans, because you can pit your pans, which over time can damage your pans. And then first 30 seconds to a minute, you want to be stirring your pasta constantly so that it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan and the pasta isn't sticking to itself. Okay. So now comes time. I might add like a little bit more in there. Easier. And heat that up a little bit. Yeah, one especially. I mean, this was like 5 medium. These weren't even like 5 big zucchini, and it made this much. Is that what you were saying? I'm like, I half heard it. And all right, so now I'm gonna taste it for seasoning. I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna use a fork. But I won't eat the shrimp. I'll leave them for you guys. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be hard. This is awkward. Don't watch. I'm gonna cut some. There. I am gonna get a mushroom. Right. I think you know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna add a little black pepper too. Okay. And then I don't want to over salt it because the Parmesan is also going to add some saltiness to it. Oh, that looks good. All right, so then I'm going to add the parm. Toss that in. Very colorful dish. Okay. All right, I'm just going to trust it because I don't want to put my my fork back in there. All right, so now the last thing we're going to do is we are going to saute some more of these. We'll set this to the side. We're going to saute a few more zoodles and then add the bolognese sauce to those. So I'm just going to add a little bit of oil to these. So obviously pan hot, oil hot. I have people who come to my classes regularly. Like my one class has been coming for 17 years, almost every month. And they say they can hear my voice in the kitchen saying pan hot, oil hot. I kind of like that. So I have another set of tongs down here. And I'm actually going to take my knife and kind of cut in the bowl just to break these guys up a little bit. Oh, that's better. They're hissing. Really, I'm just warming them up. And again, you can put the hot bolognese sauce right on top of these without cooking them. It just depends on your preference. I just like them to be a little bit more tender when I'm eating it as a meal than not tender. I'll add a little bit of salt and pepper to this as well. Are there any other questions while I'm warming these guys up? No? Okay. It can. Yeah. No, it for sure can. Like I would make this in batches and eat it during like over the next few days. Yeah. What's that? Um, yeah, you could freeze it. What I would do is make it up like that and freeze it in like um freezer bags, like quart size freezer bags. And then you just dump them and reheat them in like you could do it in the microwave or you could do like sous vide style if you already have it in a plastic bag. All right, so these hopefully will be heated through. I'm gonna dump like half of that. You could also put Parmesan cheese on top of this if you wanted to, and some extra red pepper flakes. And if you didn't like it as saucy, you don't have to put as much sauce on. All right. I'm going to turn that off and then unless there's any questions, Brittany is going to come up and talk about the nutritional aspect of these two Zoodle dishes.
Okay, so I love how she put protein in them both. But I was thinking too, for a meatless Monday, I've been doing this at my house a lot lately. You could also add, like she was talking about, like quinoa or some white beans. You could do farro. You could do some source of kind of a meatier vegetable protein, or like a vegan protein to it. So I really like that the colors there. I like the zucchini is high in water content. Okay, so it's also high in fiber. So it's very low calorie dish, low fat dish. The only thing she really used is olive oil and some vinegar. I mean, and a ton of really healthy tomatoes and vegetables. So I think this is a really good dish to have few times a month at least. And then also for a meatless Monday, you can just obviously do it with no shrimp and no beef at all. So the zucchini is full of manganese, magnesium, potassium. When you're trying to lower your blood pressure, it's really good to get these dishes in at least a few times a week. It's also fairly low sodium. She did add some salt, which is fine because we want it to taste good too. But just think of the more vegetables you're using in your dish, the lower sodium it's going to be, because naturally vegetables don't have a lot of sodium at all. And I also like that she used the pasta that she used because it has a lot of fiber in it as well. So it's going to help your digestion. It's going to help keep you full, especially if you're on a weight loss diet and you're trying to lose weight. You want to have as many vegetables with fibery kind of sides as possible to help keep you full and fill you up for a really long time. So I like these dishes a lot. I'm excited to try them, and it smells amazing in here. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, unless there are any other questions, thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully you guys will be making these at home. And if there are no other questions, then we will see you next time. Thank you.
Oh, so good.